Uh, all right, so I'm here this evening by myself. Just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a heads up and what's going on. This may be relevant to some of you, may be relevant to none of you, but you guys have to know what's going on. Uh, Last week we were filming a couple of short videos. You may have seen the excerpts on the channel, and we were discussing some budget firearms. And one of the companies that we have always had a very good relationship with and always thought relatively highly of their product was Sky. And in the shorts, what we did is just went through some of the features of the Sky CPX3, the 380, and the latest iteration of the Sky CPX2, the 9mm. This one in particular. And we just gave a little bit of a synopsis of what they do, showed the features, how they rack open, the slide release, which is a 1 minute video, whatever we can cram into it. Well, when we finished that video, what we decided we were going to do was the following day, we were going to do a breakdown video of the firearms, show you how to clean and maintain them properly. So we took the guns apart, cleaned it, made sure everything was clear, put everything back in the box, and everything was fine. Now, while I was setting up for the little demonstration video, I had a little bit of a hiccup with the Sky CPX2. It got stuck halfway into battery and took a little bit of finessing, but eventually it popped and it went back in. Now, I said, what was that? So I took the gun apart, I checked it out, everything was fine. And I said, well, it looks a little dry. I haven't cleaned it since we ran 50 rounds through it at a review. Let me oil it up. So I oiled it up, rack it a bunch of times and checked it, and everything seemed fine. Didn't really see a problem with it. Now, what happened was we put it back in the box, and the following morning we came down into the studio and we said, all right, we're going to break these things down. We're going to get them on, get a good review. I went to rack the slide on this thing, and it was a paperweight. It just didn't budge at all. Nothing. And I'm a pretty strong guy, and when I'm standing there and I can't move this thing, I realize something is wrong. So we broke out the Tipton vise, we mounted it in the vise, and we broke out the rubber mallet, and we're trying to figure, okay, let's try and get this done. Now, I've seen guys that have had problems with the slide release, and they've gone through the trouble of pulling the pins, taking the chassis out and everything else, but something told me that it wasn't really related to the chassis. It was something inside the slide. I thought maybe one of the rails had broken or something. So we laid it on its back, put a 15mm socket over the slide, and beat it down with a rubber mallet until eventually the slide went all the way back. It took an hour and 45 minutes to do that. Once we had it open, we pulled the disassembly pin, took the gun apart, and we went over it, and we went over it. We could not see what was going on. But then, with a little bit of closer inspection, putting under a magnifying glass, we noticed that the spring perch, and I'm going to try and show you guys here. I hope this comes out on video. This camera is not the best for doing live. Now, I'm going to pull the pin out of this. Now, yes, the gun is clear. There's no magazine in it. I'm going to pull the pin. I'm going to pull the slide off. Now, inside this gun, you have a small, it's actually showing up pretty well. I'm surprised. You see that little glint of silver right there? I don't know what they call it. I'm going to call it a spring perch for the purposes of discussion, because that's where the back of the plunger rests for the recoil spring. Now, the CPX2 has a captured dual spring recoil rod, and that's it right there. Now, that's the back of the plunger right there that rests against that spring perch. Now, I don't know if you can pick that up. Maybe you can or you can't. There's an awful lot of wear on the back of that. And when I compared it to the CPX 3 that I have, that I've got several hundred rounds through it, that one is not nearly as worn as this. Now, when we first took the gun out and inspected it before we even shoot it, took it apart, it didn't look like this. Now, when we're looking at that glint on what I'm going to call again the spring perch, and I was saying, why is it silver on the back when the spring rests on the front part of it? Now, when we flip it around and look at the front is black, not a problem. But you can see the very, very top of it is got a little bit of a detent in the top. And what we found is a very disturbing situation. The CPX2 has got what they call the Roebuck quad lock system on it. Now, what that does, what it's advertised to, is improve the accuracy of the firearm by having the barrel lock into place in 4 different locations, they claim. Around here and at the front of the gun, it rests on the slide. So they say that helps improve accuracy because the barrel doesn't move at all until the round is spent. Now, upon ejection, what this system does is it has to drop down about a 1/16 of an inch to clear for the slide to come back. Now, what that does is that puts the barrel at a very, very high angle. Now, at this point, that spring, dual captured recoil spring, is fully compressed on the guide rod. Now, that recoil spring normally, when you assemble the gun, sits on this little notch right here when you put it together. Once it's in the gun, it doesn't sit on that notch anymore. The recoil sits on that little ledge right there, what I'm going to call the perch. What happened was, when I racked this gun for the last time before putting it away, and I've been able to duplicate it a couple of times, but not a lot, so I don't think I'll be able to duplicate it for you now. But I am going to show you what happens. When you assemble the gun back into the way it's supposed to go, you got to line, the same way you would with any tilting barrel mechanism firearm. You have to line the hole up, put the pin back in. When this is tipped up, this recoil spring right here, this rod, was able to jump over the spring perch that it's supposed to rest on, and it wedged itself between the top of the spring perch and the bottom of the barrel lug. So when the slide came home, it caught the recoil rod underneath the barrel behind the spring perch. There's just enough pressure in there when that happened to lock the gun up completely. And I mean completely. It took a 10-pound rubber mallet and a socket to get this thing to slide back. Now, I've had a hard time duplicating it since, because once we managed to free the gun up and we took it apart, we noticed that the top of the spring perch is now deformed from having the rod on top of it with the slide pushed in, pushed the barrel up, the rod between it, sandwiched it, and it caused a problem. Now that burr is there, it's now actually has something to catch on, so it's not going to jump behind it like it was. Now, we took everything apart, and I molded up some clay, and I put some clay on the inside of this thing so I could, because you can't see inside the gun. And like I said, when you see this thing rack, you'll notice that the top of the barrel drops. On any other tilting barrel mechanism, this block here, this locking block, is below the slide. So the slide is able to slide past it, and the barrel doesn't tip up at such an extreme angle. When this one goes, the barrel's got to drop. And then when this comes all the way back, and this is the fire position, the barrel is up at a pretty decent pitch. When the barrel is up at that pitch, there is just enough room between the bottom of the barrel and the top of the spring perch that the plunger on the back of the spring is able to clear it. Now, this malfunction happened while I was just racking the slide. Okay, this just happened while I was racking the slide. This wasn't this wasn't under fire. This wasn't, running rounds through it. This happened under maintenance conditions. Just racking the slide, racked it, and that was it. When I think back about the night I put it away, I remember when I racked it the last time, I felt an unusual click as it slid back into battery. That click that I felt was the rod jumping over, because that's the only part of the gun that changed. And now you say, well, it's a malfunction that happened during routine maintenance. It's not a big deal. But it happened at the same position that the gun would be in if you were firing it. And when would you be firing your firearm? Practicing or defending yourself? If this happened while you were defending yourself, you're shit out of luck, because your firearm is now rendered completely and totally inoperable. Now, I took apart the CPX3 rather, the 380. The recoil spring on the 380 is significantly lighter than the recoil spring on the 9mm. So when I rack that back, there's not enough oomph behind that spring to push the back of the guide rod back to even attempt to try and jump over that spring perch. That also has the quad lock system in it. Now, when I measured that in the same way I did with this, by putting a piece of clay in there and running it through the operation, and when I took it all apart, I was able to measure the height of the clay, compare it to the height of the back of the plunger on the guide rod. The clay was a larger diameter, meaning there's enough room for the guide rod to jump. Wasn't the case with the CPX3. There's no way that guide rod that we could tell is going to jump it. However, with the CPX2, it's not only possible, but we now know that it happened at least under maintenance conditions. I am reluctant to even run any rounds through this now, because I don't know if there's any other damage to the firearm. It doesn't look like it. I actually got a hold of the CPX2, compared it, and nothing else on the gun looks out of line. But if you're carrying this firearm, or this is the firearm that's on your bedside table, unload it, put the safety trigger lock on it, put it away, and wait for Sky to figure out what in the hell they plan on doing about this. Now, I was so reluctant to make this video because, number one, Sky's an American company, and they're really good, honest, decent people that work there. All right, from Joe Roebuck on down, they're all really decent people, every single one of them. We've had nothing but good experiences with Sky. We've had any time that we requested something, they obliged. This is the only company that has sent us a firearm when we actually requested it, outside of Iron Horse Firearms a few years ago. Everything else you see on the channel, we buy. We don't belong to some consortium where they give guns away in exchange for good reviews. We tell you the truth about it. Even if they sent the gun for free, we're going to tell you the truth. And it hurts me to have to say that this is not going to be a reliable firearm for anybody under any circumstances. It hurts me to say it, because it's a good company. And if there's a problem with the design, I have no idea how many of them are out there. I have no idea how many people are relying on this firearm to be able to be dispatched in a time of need. But the solution that I have for them should be relatively inexpensive, and that would be to increase the size of the backer plate that's on the guide rod spring, the guide rod itself. You have to increase that size of that diameter by at least 20 to 30%. It would still offer enough room for the gun to function properly, and it would eliminate any and all possibility that this guide rod is ever going to jump that spring perch and render the gun useless. Now, the quad lock system is a pretty innovative design considering what it does, but every tilting barrel gun that I know of remains at a fixed location at the back of the gun. They don't have to drop. So I think in the matter that it has to drop, there's a certain amount of clearances that need to be made inside the gun, and that may have been what limited the size of this to be what it is. But when I analyzed it and I looked close and I actually put the whole thing together without the slide, and you can actually then visualize what's going on with the gun, you see that mechanism right there has got, let me rest it against my shirt. You see it's got this weird dog leg on it, and it's sort of open up at the bottom. Every other tilting barrel mechanism that I've seen is a little bit, this is extremely unique for the brand. But with this in that location, when that has to operate, it has to drop down. When the slide is up, this is up here. It has to drop down, tilt up, and then the slide comes back. With that tilt in it, this guide rod can manage to wedge itself right underneath it. And then when the slide comes in and that sandwiches it down, that glint is what you get. Now I've contacted Sky about it. All right. I asked them if there would be any way that we could do what we're doing now. You guys are watching me, and really thank you. I really do appreciate you guys for joining me on this thing tonight, because this is important. They said they could. I asked them if they could have one of their engineers give me a video call and I could describe it to them over the phone, because I want to make sure that they're experiencing through my eyes what I saw, and not just going through their routine to find out what happened with the gun. I want to show them my experience with it, and then they'll go. Now, Sky said that they would not be able to have an engineer on the phone with me to be able to discuss what happened, but that they did give me a sheet to return the gun with complete detailing of what happened. Now, I did send them a video of the gun before I managed to unlock it, showing that the gun, how badly locked up the gun was. I showed them I sent them the video. They said they couldn't have somebody respond to me, send the gun back. And because this happened whilst I was in the middle of about to conduct a review, they were going to send me one of their new guns that they have, their new Striker Fire model, which oddly enough was the model I requested before they sent me this. This came to me by accident. So I'm going to look at this as a matter of the gun gods stepping in, because maybe since nobody has been able to pinpoint why the slides lock up on these things, and believe me, I looked. There's dozens of videos that show the various problems that people have with this gun and whatever generation that they have. This was the only time I was actually able to find my set of circumstances was with my own experience. I couldn't find it on the internet. So the fact that this happened didn't happen to me, I'm going to say is a godsend, because like we said, we don't sugarcoat anything here on the Range Report. We tell you the straight skinny all the time. We never lie to you, ever. And as much as it hates, and it like I said, it pains me to have to say it, because it really is a good company. I don't feel that they're going to safe for you to own, or at least not safe enough for you to rely on. I would have thought differently. You know, my gripes with the gun were it has a heavy trigger pull. The sights are a little chintzy. It's too small my hand. But those are all subjective things that I gave on the critique. about the gun. They're all completely subjective. Somebody that doesn't have triple X large hands is not going to have a problem shooting this gun. I do. It's just uncomfortable for me, but it functioned fine. But this is now no longer a matter of being subjective. This is a matter of safety. And I, in clear conscience, no matter how much I love the company and I love the people that work there, you if you own one of these things, put it away. Let me get some sort of resolution with Sky as far as what they're going to do with this. If they may be forced to have to issue a recall. Then again, I don't know. This could very well potentially be a one-off issue. But again, I measured another one and it was exactly the same. So, I don't know what to tell you. I just hope that they do the right thing. I know that they will, or at least I sure as hell hope that they do. I'm going to be sending this back to them tomorrow. Uh, this video I decided to do live because I actually had to poll everybody on Facebook, and because I was having a real conflict of conscience with this. I don't want to hurt the company, but it's more important that nobody else gets hurt. You know, a company versus lives. Yeah, you balance the two of them together. Yeah, I have to err on the side of safety, and I have to make sure that people, are safe with their firearm. Uh, in the meantime, again, for those of you that have signed in, for those of you that have taken the time to spend this with me the whole time, I sincerely do appreciate it. If you know somebody who's carrying one of these, by the end of this video, copy the link and please send it to them. Let them see it. Let them know what I've experienced with this firearm. If you've had similar experiences with it, uh, drop a line in the comments below. If you'd like, send me an email directly. My email is frank@l1f.us. That's my email through the Liberty First Foundation. You could reach me there. And like I said, until I see you guys again, hopefully I'll have an update with this thing next week. Uh, until then, you guys be safe and shoot straight. God bless you. And if you, like I said, if you're carrying one of these, don't. So with that, I'm going to say goodnight. You guys be safe. Remember, please join us on the Liberty First Foundation YouTube channel tomorrow. Tomorrow we have the whole gang from the Loaded Mic podcast is joining us on our weekly roundtable discussion tomorrow night. I was promised they're going to destroy the channel. So we'll see what happens. But until then, if we don't see you till next time, happy Easter, happy Passover, and all the rest of that. So you guys, be safe. Have a good night. Thanks.